welcome to Tarunayas. Today we will be discussing editorial analysis of 5th of October 2022. So let's start with first topic of the day. Recently, Election Commission of India had commented on the political parties that how they are going to fulfill their election manifesto, therefore bringing in light the model code of conduct, which is very important for India, as India is the largest democracy of the country. With the participatory democracy, India conducts election after every 5 years. Therefore, the model code of conduct becomes very important in order to fulfill the mandate of the Election Commission of India under Article 324, that is to conduct free and fair election in India. So let's start with the model code of conduct. You can relate this topic with General Studies paper 2, that is appointment to various constitutional posts, powers, functions and responsibilities of various constitutional bodies. So here we will be dealing with Election Commission of India under Article 324. Alright, the prime mandate of the ECI is to conduct free and fair election. All right. So therefore, we will be discussing model code of conduct. We will be discussing model code of conduct to see that how the behavior and the conduct of the political parties and political leaders is, how the conduct of the political parties and the political leaders during the election processes is to be ensured so as to uphold the constitutional values of India. Right. So let's see what is model code of conduct. Basically, they are the set of guidelines which are to be followed by the political parties and the political campaigners during the processes of India from the announcement of the election, until the complete process of the election is completed. So in order to conduct free and fair election, in order to ensure free and fair election, Election Commission of India provides a set of guidelines for the political parties to be followed during the election processes, right? So model code of conduct is nothing new in India. However, it dates back to the 1960s when for the first time the Kerala administration has issued a set of instruction for the state legislative assembly elections, and therefore post Kerala pilot project with regard to MCC, it was then circulated to the national level in 1962 during the Lok Sabha election and the state legislative election. Subsequently, witnessing 1967, where more states came forward to embrace MCC. So basically, from this we conclude that MCCs are the moral, consensus-based, voluntarily guidelines. There is no legal backing to MCC. All right. So a document was prepared regarding MCC during the midterm election of 1968 and 1969. From here onwards, we will deal with the evolution of the model code of conduct, that how model code of conduct post 1960s evolved into what we see today. In 1975 the codes were revised under the chief election officer. District committees were to be constituted in order to regulate the compliance of the code, and in 1977 after the emergency, they were circulated nationwide, because if you remember the Raj Narayan case of 1970s, where the election corrupt practices were the major issue. So therefore in 1977 the codes were then circulated to the national level, and ECI in 1975 had section for monitoring the parties in power. Now, why this is important? In order to provide a level playing field to all the political parties to ensure the election, to ensure free and fair election. Alright, so parties who are in power, whether it is the central government or it is the state government, the parties who are in power, then they should not have any undue advantage because of their position. Therefore, in 1979, the ECI had specifically added a chapter in the MCC code, right? In Harbans Singh Jalal case, which was a very important case in 1994, which decided, in fact, the court validated the authorities' decision regarding the pronouncement of the MCC. Now, what the case dealt with? In many of the instances, it was seen that MCC was challenged in the court. In fact, Andhra Pradesh had specifically challenged several provisions of this code, and therefore in Harbans Singh Jalal case it was said that from the announcement until the completion of the final phase of the election processes, MCC are to be followed by the political parties and the political leaders, right? However, post 1980s and until early 1990s, it was seen that the corrupt practices in the election processes were followed by many of the political parties, which included acts like booth capturing, and freebies, election malpractices such as forced voting, etc., etc. Right. Therefore, in 1991, when T.N. Seshan became the Chief Election Commissioner, this proved to be a turning point in the implementation of the Model Code of Conduct, and in 2001, it was agreed that 3 years prior to the election will not be announced, right? Suppose if election is to be conducted, the election date I am talking about, the election date 3 years prior to the date of the election, they will not be announced. And the second thing which was agreed, that no political leader will announce any big public project or inaugurate any big public project, right? In 2014, another provision regarding the election manifesto was added. And this is the reason why MCC came into highlight when Election Commission of India specifically asked the political parties that how they are going to fulfill their, how they are going to finance their election manifesto promises or election promises, how they are going to fulfill them. For example, many at times the political parties before election, they announce or they make promises like free electricity, which is commonly known as the freebies. So free electricity, free power, increasing the subsidies, farm loan waiver, etc., etc., which becomes a major burden on the public exchequer. Therefore, regulating the conduct and behavior of the political parties and political leaders is of utmost importance. Now let us see what is the present status of the code. The first point is that it is not legally enforceable. It is not legally enforceable. All right. It consists of the 8 part. That specifically deals with the grievance redressal, meetings, public booths, redressal of the complaints, parties in power, which was added in 1979, and the election manifesto provision, which was added in the year 2014. All right. So this is the present status of the code, that it deals specifically with all these matters concerning the election processes in India. Now let's talk about the significance of the code. Significance of the code comes directly from the not directly, but in fact, I mean implicitly, from 324, which states that the Election Commission of India would conduct free and fair election. This is the mandate of the Election Commission of India, that it will conduct free and fair election to maintain a level playing field so as to reduce any undue advantage which given to political parties because of their position, to conduct a peaceful and a smooth election process, to ensure that there are no malpractices in the election process, such as bribery, booth capturing, etc., etc. So this is what the significance of the code is, that why the code is very important. Now there is another issue that arises with MCC, is that there is no legal enforceability. There is no legal enforceability. Now let's see what are the pros and cons of not having legal enforceability or having legal enforceability. So we'll discuss the legal enforceability of the code now. So you see that Indian judiciary is already burdened with the high pendency of the cases. So if the codes are implemented, if they are legally enforceable, that means they will now become eligible. Any case related with the MCC will be eligible to be challenged in court, right? To be challenged in court. This will delay the judicial process. Many experts say that the burdened judiciary, this will reduce the chances of having a free and fair election, because the legal enforceability of the code will then become a tool at the hands of the political parties and the political leaders to delay other processes. The essence of the code lies in the quick enforceability, because the MCC is already agreed. It is already agreed by the political parties. This is not something which is imposed upon them. The political parties themselves in 1960s, if you remember, we had discussed the evolution of the MCC, that how the political parties gradually they agreed to having a code of conduct that regulates their behavior during the election processes. So therefore, this brings us to the point third, that moral backing is more important than the legal backing. So many times there is a legal backing of the there is a legal backing, but the implementation is poor. Therefore, more than the legal backing, it is the moral backing which is more important when it comes to MCC. It is the constitutional values. It is the constitutional values that needs to be upholded by the political parties and the political leaders, right? There is another point that experts raises, that RPA 1951 already has the provision, that means already there are legal provisions relating with the corrupt practices, all right, related with the corrupt practices. For example, section 123, section 30, section 70. So there are several sections which deals with the corrupt practices. There are sections which deals with the disproportionate income of the political leaders. There are sections which deals with that how a person who is convicted of a crime for more than 2 years cannot participate in election. So many experts says that RPA already has a legal provision regarding the corrupt practices. There are provisions in Indian Penal Code too, which can help regulating the behavior of the political leaders when it comes to their right of freedom of speech and expression. When it comes to their right of freedom of speech and expression. For example, the section 295 that deals with that any speech, etc., that incites the or hurts any religious sentiments or feeling, right? So section 295 of the Indian Penal Code. So Indian Penal Code also regulates the behavior of the political leadership during the election processes and campaigning processes. The Article 324, the Supreme Court in fact has highlighted in many of the cases that Article 324 or the Constitution gives sufficient and enough power to the Election Commission of India to enforce the code and to ensure the free and fair election. Free and fair election. All right. So with this, we are done with this topic of moral code of conduct. So let's move on to the next topic, which is economics of animal rearing. You can relate this topic with general studies paper 3. This is the topic which is directly given in your syllabus. So we'll deal what the economics of animal rearing means, and what is animal rearing, what are different possibilities, and what is the significance of animal rearing in India, how it can boost the income of farmers, and also how it can boost the economic growth of the nation. We will try to link it with various aspects of your syllabus, like for GS, for example, GS paper 1, you can link it with the social empowerment, especially the women farmers. So this will help augment their income. You can link it with GS paper 2 with the health, nutrition, etc. You can also link it with this with GS paper 3. In fact, this is a direct topic from GS 3. So let's see some of the facts with respect to the animal rearing in India. Approximately 20 million people depend upon livestock. We will discuss what livestock is, right? So animal rearing is nothing but it is part of the agriculture activities in India, which involves taking care of the animals, nurturing them in order to avail benefits, either commercial or domestic, from their produce. Could be meat, milk, wool, etc. So this is what animal rearing is. So 20 million of the people in India, they depend upon the livestock. We will also see the data from the 28th livestock census. 28th livestock census. All right. So it augments the income, 16% of the income of small farm household, sorry. So why this is important? 14% of the rural household. You know that according to census 2011, more than 70% of the population of India lives in rural India. Right? It provides employment to 8.8% of the people. It contributes to 4.11% of the GDP and 25.6% of agriculture and 25.6% of agriculture GDP. Dairy, specifically dairy, India is the largest milk producer, and it contributes to 21% of the global production. All right. So why animal rearing or livestock is important for the small farm household or rural household? You see, according to the agriculture census, small and marginal farmers they have on an average the operational land holding is 1.04 hectare, which is too small for any capitalization, all right, or even for the contract farming. So operational land holding in India is small. So therefore animal rearing or livestock keeping help augment the income of the small farm household, and this small and marginal farmers, they constitute approximately 80% of the India according to the agriculture census, like by the Ministry of Agriculture, Farmers and Welfare, right? So let's move on. Now, what is the significance for India? Why animal rearing and livestock is significant for India? According to the livestock census, that is 20th census, India has the largest population of the livestock, which is 535.78 million. You should remember this figure. Okay, if not any other data, then at least this figure should need to be remembered, that 535 million, approximately this much of the livestock India has. Total cattle are 192. This also you should remember. However, there is one more important point that I would like to highlight here, that agriculture census pointed out that there is a 6% decline in the total indigenous population of the cattle, right? Of indigenous population. Why this is of immense importance is because of the peculiar nature that India has. An indigenous population, because they are already acclimatized to the Indian climate, to the Indian drought condition, to the Indian monsoon. So therefore, investment in the indigenous population of cattle or of the livestock will be of high economic value, will give high economic return, right? So major states having largest livestock population is Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh. These are some of the states that I have taken, not all the states. Other significance of animal rearing in India is that it mitigates the risk which is associated with climate change. We know that El Nino effect on Indian monsoon. So therefore, also you can relate it with the fact that approximately 34% of the gross cropped area of India is under irrigation. Rest of the area is dependent, rest of the agriculture land is dependent upon the monsoon, right? Therefore, the climate risk, the risk that comes associated with the climate change, animal rearing in India help mitigate those risks, right? We already discussed that it helps augmenting the income of the farmers. Nutrition is another important. If you look at the data of National Family Health Survey, you see that approximately 50% of the women in the age group of 15 to 49 years are anemic. There is 35% of the child stunting. So therefore, animal rearing also provides nutrition in form of the edible food items like milk and the milk products like ghee, etc., etc. So nutrition is also of immense importance. The bioorganic material. I have only given one example of the scheme, that is Govardhan scheme, and you can relate it with other schemes like Jeevan, Satat, etc., etc., biofuel, etc. So the animal rearing also provides us with the bioorganic bioorganic material, so as to augment other programs and other initiatives of Government of India. Social security. This also provides social security. How? You see that agriculture activity does not last more than 180 days, right? So what a farmer having operational land holding of 1.04 hectare would do for other days of the year. Therefore, it also provides the social security to the small and marginal farmer and to the farmers and rural household to augment their income and live not just a sustainable but a healthy life, which is Article 21 of Constitution of India. Therefore, it also provides social security. Women empowerment. It helps augment the income of rural women. Now, women empowerment is important because in fact the economic survey of 2017-18 also pointed that women do have the propensity to save, and if a woman has money, she is more likely to invest into health and education. All right. Therefore, women empowerment becomes important here, and animal rearing help her empower. Now, agriculture, weed control. So animal rearing by the grazing activity. So animal rearing by grazing activity help control weed, right? So reducing the amount of herbicide and weedicide needed, right? So here you can mention biocontrol, right? This is how you can use the subheadings, okay? So in exam, if you are to answer if you are to answer any question, try to use subheadings and choose these subheadings from your syllabus itself, right? Food processing industry. Food processing industry. After the launch of Mega Food Park scheme, in 2008, many of the government initiatives have been launched with respect to the food processing industry, and animal rearing provides raw material to the food processing industry. Alright, for example, processed milk or processed meat, the frozen products, right? Animal rearing is not just restricted to cattle and bovine. There are fish rearing also. Fish ranching it is called, right? What happens, like a small portion of a water body is selected, and it is limited by using nets and all, and here fish breeding, here fish breeders, they breed fish, right? So animal rearing is not just restricted to this bovine and all. Poultry is also there. Poultry, right? The eggs, the meat. Okay. So there is socio-cultural importance also of animal rearing. It is a symbol of wealth, it is a symbol of status, and if you see that there are many sports which are played using, with the help of cattle and bovines, like for example this Kambala race is there, Jallikattu is there, right? So indigenous breeds are important and they have this socio-cultural importance. There is Pashu Haat is there, annual Pashu Haat is there. The Pushkar Mela is there, So socio-cultural importance is there. If you go to Rajasthan, they decorate their animals, camels, for fair. So animal rearing has socio-cultural importance, right? So let's look at some of the data which was presented by the economic survey, that animal rearing has let me delete this. That animal rearing has registered annual growth of 7.9%, and the economic survey 2021 said that there is a gross value addition of 24.35% in the year 2014-15, and it increased to 28.63% in the year 2018-19, right? So this data also you can use, that how significant the animal rearing is in India and how growing it is, right? Therefore, if you consider that the Ashok Dalwai committee talked about augmenting or doubling the farmers' income by 2020. So animal rearing also, it also played an important part in augmenting the farmers' income. Now any industry that is established, or any sector of the economy, does not come without challenge. So therefore animal rearing also has its own challenge which if are removed or elevated, then we can boost the farmers' economy, their livelihood, their household income, their overall lifestyle, etc., etc. So the first challenge is the productivity of the farm animal, right? Productivity of the farm animal. Disease and infection of the livestock. For example, the foot and mouth disease, the brucellosis, right? And another disease which was in news recently, it was lumpy skin disease. Therefore, the productivity, these diseases reduces the productivity of the animal. Therefore, instead of benefiting the farmer, animal or livestock becomes a burden. Therefore, it becomes important highly pertinent for the, or I mean imperative for the government to have an initiative with regard to these two challenges, right? The feed and the fodder, the feed and the fodder, the quality of the feed, the quality of the feed and fodder, the quality of feed and fodder is important. Another concern that arises is the greenhouse gas emission. So if you see that animal rearing releases methane. How? Especially the ruminants, ruminants like cattle, etc. So the ruminants releases these methane gas. So there is a challenge of greenhouse gas emission when it comes to animal rearing. In fact, the Food and Agriculture Organization said that 14.5% of the global anthropogenic greenhouse gas emission and 92% of fresh water is used for farming. Greenhouse gas emission from animal rearing or livestock, right? 14.5%. It contributes to the global anthropogenic emission. 92% of the fresh water is used for the farming purpose, and out of this 92%, 1/3 is used for the manufacturing of the animal products. For example, tanning industry. Right? There are breeding issues. The health and occupational hazards are there. This is highly unorganized sector. There is no networking or no linkages. The slaughtering facilities, the quality and the ethicalities which are followed in the slaughterhouse, the registration process, the standard of procedure which is to be followed in these slaughtering facilities, nothing has been organized. So this is highly unorganized sector. Financial issues are there with respect to the loan, all right. Insurance, crop insurance is there, but no animal insurance. Unawareness of the farmer, unawareness is also challenge, right? Now let's see what is the breeding issue. Now what happens, this is my observation also. So the male calf is of no importance to the breeders, to the dairy farmers, doesn't have any importance. Why? Because of the two reasons. First, due to the mechanization of the farming, and the second reason, this is the major reason in fact, that because of the mechanization of farming, they have no use. Earlier, under the traditional system of agriculture practices, the ox was used. However, today their importance has declined for the commercial breeders. So therefore, female calf has more importance, of course, for the obvious reasons. So breeding issues are there, the quality of the semen, etc. In fact, there was a proposal that technology can be used to separate the sperms in the semen, like which has X chromosome, and those having Y chromosomes need to be separated so as to reduce the chances of having a male calf, right? So as to reduce the chances of having a male calf. Therefore, these breeders will be incentivized to invest into their business. All right. Now, what are the measures which are needed to augment this? Improving the feed quality and the digestibility. For example, if you remember, in the past few months, Harit Chara was in news, right? Harit Chara was in news. It was designed by ICAR, if I am not wrong. This Harit Chara was designed in such a way that it will reduce the methane emission. It will reduce what? The methane emission, right? Improving the health of the animal, and husbandry practices. Availability of the veterinary doctor, accessibility, affordability and availability. The agroforestry, so as to compensate the greenhouse gas emission. If you look at the data provided by the State of Forest report of the year 2022, 21-22. So agroforestry in Andhra Pradesh, agroforestry in fact was the major reason for the augmentation of the forest in Andhra Pradesh. The manure management, the cow dung which is produced can be used to produce manure, right? So therefore there is a high need for the management of the dung, right? The gobar gas plants, everything needs to be linked in a rural area, right? For example, dung is produced here, the gobar gas is produced here, so everything, the networking has to be done so as to link different sectors or different section of the rural economy. Grassland management, if you look at, I think a few years back there was a report which was published by Terry, that in the grassland in India are reducing. So maintaining pastures, green pastures, it is important. So grassland management is important. Awareness of small and marginal farmers. There is a need for the breeding policy. There is a need for the cold storage, for transportation, for distribution, etc. And there is a need for improving and enhancing the logistics. So you link it with the the national logistics policy, right? So everything is linked. If we want to increase our agriculture export, including the including the animal products, logistics need to be improved, cold storage needs to be improved, there should be a breeding policy, etc., etc. Right. Now let's see what the government has done so far when it comes to the animal rearing, when it comes to enhancing or augmenting the income of the farmers. The artificial insemination program, right? The artificial insemination program, the genome selection, the technology which I told you that X and Y chromosomes will be separated, and artificially the sperms will be introduced in the female system, and so as to reduce by more than, in fact 90% it was said, the chances of having a male calf. E-Gopala app for giving out the information to the animal rearers, etc. The dairy development scheme, in fact the dairy processing and infrastructure development fund was launched and was announced by interest subvention scheme by NABARD. Rashtriya Gokul mission is there, National Livestock Mission is there, National Animal Disease Control Program is there in order to control the foot and mouth disease and brucellosis, right? Mobile vet vehicle is there. What means there will be a van which will have veterinary doctors, all the drugs, etc., etc., to make it available to the farmers in the rural India. All right. So with this, we have completed two topics: the moral code of conduct and the animal rearing. So that's it for today. Thank you.